Welcome to Will It Work? I'm Kevin. This is probably going to be a longer video. I have quite a lot of stuff for the Saturn, and there's a number of things I want to check out. But yes, we are looking at the Sega Saturn. This came out pretty much to the day in the United States, if I recall, when the PlayStation came out. And, when both systems came out, I remember, I didn't buy either. First of all, when they first came out, I didn't buy either of them. I just didn't have the money at the time. But I eventually did get a Sega Saturn because my friend Eric had a PlayStation, and it just made sense that one of us had one of us had the other. Eventually, of course, I got a PlayStation, whatever. But, when Sony first came out, Sony was new to the gaming industry, and the PlayStation was very powerful. And if you look back, with hindsight being 2020, you would be like, of course, the PlayStation's amazing. Tons of games were made for it, etc. Everybody's going to buy the PlayStation. But at the time, you had a lot of companies competing for this space. Some of them new, like 3DO. Some of them old, like Atari, right? And but there were many others that were competing. And Sega was, at that moment, the dominant console manufacturer of the last generation in the United States. The Genesis in the United States did better than the Super Nintendo in terms of game sales and sales of systems. As far as I understand it, it's what I've read. I don't want to get into an argument about it, but worldwide, Super Nintendo dominated, Famicom dominated, but in the United States, the Genesis did really well. So, Saturn, Sega had, a thriving arcade business, and so you kind of look at it and you go, well, it seems like a powerful system, which kind of was, but it was very hard to develop for, but not like, your end user is going to know that at the time. And so you kind of sit there and go, well, this is $100 more than a PlayStation. PlayStation has a handful of titles. Saturn has a handful of titles. Go with the name brand one. Go with the one, that you want initially. But it just didn't go that well for Sega because of a lot of problems in developing for this. Plus, their relationships with developers were strained, and Sony just did a great job of not only purchasing a lot of companies to develop games for their system, like 989 Sports. I think they bought Psygnosis. In fact, I think when they bought Psygnosis, who used to make a lot of games for the Amiga, CD32, etc., Psygnosis basically came into Sony and was like, you guys are doing a lot of this wrong. We're going to help you fix this and make this into a better environment for developers to work on. So a lot of it had to do with Psygnosis helping Sony out, but that's another story. Somebody could write a book about it. Anyway, the Saturn struggled a lot in the beginning, and then later, sometime around when Virtua Fighter came out for it, and Virtua Fighter 2 especially, they had improved their development libraries to the point where they were more competitive at that point with the PlayStation. But by that point, PlayStation had become so dominant that the Saturn was just looked at as a second-run system. Now, honestly, that's actually not that bad because we lost a lot of companies in this generation. This is when it separated the boys from the girls, when the PlayStation came out and Saturn. We lost Atari, we lost 3DO, we lost Commodore, and we had a bunch of other ones that never really had much of a chance to get out there and try and compete. And so, they never, FM Towns, right? The PCFX. It also, ended TurboGrafx for all, the Turbo Duo, etc. Neo Geo CD. There's a lot. There's just a lot. And so being the second run system wasn't that bad. And it did at least give Sega enough to think like, hey, if we just cut our losses on this and do the Dreamcast, we can get ahead of Sony before they release PlayStation 2 and come out with a great system. We've talked about that on the Dreamcast. It didn't go Sega's way. It wasn't because Dreamcast was bad. It wasn't because Sega Saturn was bad. It's just that Sony had momentum, and they just knew how to use it. And of course the PlayStation, in this case, was a superior system. PlayStation 2 had some flaws in it. Still a great system. Outsold everybody else. But we talk about that in the Dreamcast one. So anyway, I have a lot of gear for this. We're going to take a look at all of it. This is going to be a longer video. I don't know if it's going to be the longest video we've done, but let's see. Now, a lot of the boxes I have are in terrible condition because these were involved in a minor flooding incident where nothing got submerged, you know what I mean? Like some water on the floor soaked into the boxes, and the boxes themselves just took a real bad beating, and in many cases I should just throw the boxes away, but they keep everything so nice and neat and everything. So this was the original one I had, I think. So let's take a look at this one. I think this one I tried to mod it, so I don't think this one works, but maybe it does. We'll take a look. It's not the only one I have. Jesus, it's really in the box. Here we have rather dusty original Sega Saturn. Now they came in a few different colors. There were a few different collector's item units for this, and one of the noticeable things about the Saturn versus PlayStation was the additional cartridge port on the back here. And what the cartridge port enabled you to do was put in a memory card. And not for saving games, but actually to expand the memory of the system. And this was popular in Japan. It never did anything really in the United States. But it was very popular in Japan because in order to play fighting games, right? The 2D fighting games like Street Fighter 2, for instance, but you know, there was all sorts of them. Those 2D animated graphics use a lot of memory, and there's a lot of frames of animation. You're each, you know, hand-drawn frames of animation for each one of the characters, all of the animations in the background, etc. And these systems, PlayStation and Sega Saturn, only had 2 megabytes of RAM. And if you go back to like looking at, say, like the Neo Geo system, which took the big arcade cartridges, a lot of those things use like 16 megs of RAM, I think, something around that point, in order to get all the frames of animation into the system. Now, some of that had to do with sound as well on the Neo Geo. It wasn't all that memory being used for just animation. So when you actually, you know, break it down, because you got CD here, so you can get sound and music and stuff off of the CD rather than holding it in the memory of a cartridge, Sega was able to get most of the frames of animation. I don't know if it was all of the frames of animation, but most of them by selling people a memory card that plugged into the back, and games would take advantage of that, you know, when they were available. So, like I said, it didn't do that well in the United States, but it was big in Japan, and you know, you can still find white Sega Saturns en masse online from Japan for very cheap. Now, surprisingly, there's no controller in that box, or in my box, just this Sega Saturn. And take a look at this. I think we had an expansion port here on the back. There's a watch battery as well, which probably needs to be replaced. If I recall, it may not be playable without that in there. I'm not sure if this is the unit I modded or not, to be honest with you. I can't tell. We'll find out once we get some power and get it going. Let's look at a few other things I have here. So I have an EEPROM burned card here that was used for swapping out games to play pirated games. I don't think I ever got this to work right. I don't think it ever did anything. It's got a couple of EEPROMs on it. I kept it just because, you know, it was like the magic key or something. Maybe it allowed me to play Japanese games. I don't remember, to be honest with you. We have the... some things were made for it in the beginning. Sega always had this thing where they would sell peripherals for their new consoles without actually having games that really took advantage of them. Kind of like the arcade sticks for the Dreamcast. I mean, there was eventually games for it, but when it first came out, there wasn't, yet they already were selling controls for it. Here we have the mission stick. This is a good example of something that's a bit overkill for just about every Saturn game. Although it, you know, it certainly would give you the impression that there was big things coming from Sega. You know, you got a big flight stick here, trigger gun. Feels pretty good. You've got some decent. They don't feel micro switch, but they're okay. Controls, plus, you know, you got some different settings for each one of the buttons up here in your start button. So mission stick, this has never been used. Unfortunately, the box took a you know, a soak, but the you know, yeah, see right there, it's a great example, right? So it's got a little bit of water right there on those screws. Those screws rusted and just made a mess of things. Now that's nothing here is bad or broken or anything. It's just, you know, it needs to be cleaned up because of that. And what is that for? Not sure. The wiring is, you know, rubber and everything in there. I'm not sure what that's for right there, but, like, you know, that's the unfortunate thing. I've had this, you know, these collection of consoles for a very, very long time, and this one was even wrapped in plastic, and you can see here a little bit of water got in there, and it happens, you know what I mean? Thank God there wasn't a fire and all my systems got, you know, burned up or something. If the Saturn was basically, which basically it was, some of the stuff for the Saturn got a little wet, that's okay. Of all the consoles, most of the stuff for the Saturn is still easily acquirable. So we have that. Then we have the virtual stick. I won't take this out. Well, no, I'm not going to take it out. I think this was used like once or twice, but hardly ever to take out of the box. It's kind of like the other one. It was a launch peripheral, you know, same buttons, switches, etc. Sega being like, oh, people are going to want to play arcade games, so we'll give them a flight stick and an arcade stick, etc. Sold separately. They also sold this ridiculous thing, which is the steering wheel. I'll zoom out a little bit. And, you know, you could play your racing games with this. They did, you know, I think they had some racing games at launch. I think it has like a big suction cup or something on the bottom. It has 4 suction cups, but there was like a way to lock this in. Or maybe that was for the tilt. Yeah, you could tilt it. Yeah, and then lock it into place depending on how you wanted to play with your buttons, etc. And your start button there. Yeah. You know, I've never been a big fan of steering wheels. I just think they slow me down. Flight sticks, they work better with certain games. I do like flight sticks. Steering wheels, I mean, if you're really into it, it's fine, but it's never really worked for me as a thing. But whatever. I got it. That's weird, I got a weird battery back thing here. this? Vector Manufacturing Charging Dock. I don't know what the hell that is from. We'll find out. So the steering wheel didn't get wet. The Virtua Stick didn't get wet. Just the flight stick, which of course was the one thing that was never used, but whatever. We have here the... Zoom back in a little bit here. We have a Netlink keyboard adapter because the Saturn, I don't know if it was the first system to go on the internet, but it might have been in Japan. Sometimes I notice that on Wikipedia they credit that to the Gamecom. This came out a year earlier than the Gamecom. In fact, I wrote that in the notes on Wikipedia that I think this is wrong. Netlink came out first. And so this was just part of Netlink, which just give you an ability to connect the PS2 keyboard to your Saturn. So that was kind of cool to have. To be honest with you, I don't recall if Netlink came out in the United States or not. You know, the modem thing was a bigger deal in Japan, and given that this is in English, I'm thinking it did. But boy, I don't remember much about it. Maybe you could get a browser on here or something. It couldn't have been very good. It just couldn't have been. I mean, it was early days, though. I mean, the web wasn't much of anything at the time. So here's our controller. And it's your standard second edition type Sega Genesis controller. D-pad on the left, 6 buttons, start in the middle, a couple of bumpers, no triggers. These bumpers barely register when you push on them. You know, hardly any give there at all. These controllers worked okay. They were light though. They felt flimsy, but they did work okay. I don't have anything terrible to say about them. I didn't try to look for aftermarket replacements when I would use them. I'm just, they weren't as good as a Genesis pad. Like a Genesis pad just felt solid. This felt hollow, which it is, and, you know, it lacked rumble, etc. But now, you know, hindsight again, being 2020, everybody likes the DualShock, but before the DualShock, Sony just had a pretty straight up, simple D-pad with 4 buttons, right? And I think they had, it's hard to remember, I think they had bumpers. Don't know if they had triggers. Maybe though. We're going to get to the PlayStation at some point. We'll talk about all that. But so this had enough. This was good enough. Now they did eventually come out with an analog pad for Nights into Dreams, and maybe there were some other games that it supported. But for the most part, Saturn didn't last as long as the PlayStation, if I recall. So you know, it never really got on board with the whole analog control stick thing. But anyway. Big old connector for this thing, which is also crazy. It worked okay. Never really had any problems with that. And we have a second controller. Yeah, same deal with those bumpers. I'll just connect it anyway. I don't even know if this console is going to work. That's the whole point of this show. Find out if this stuff works. But don't worry. I've got stuff to show you. We have a gun here. So Sega Saturn had a number of very good light guns. This is one example of a light gun. You know, this was an aftermarket, the Pursuer. I like light gun games. It's unfortunate that they're not embraced more these days. You know, playing first-person shooters, it always just seems sort of like kind of a, you know, using a mouse to aim and stuff. It always just seemed kind of like a better idea to me, like if you just have a gun in your one hand, you know, you're moving around and everything, and then with the other hand, you're just like blasting guys, and I don't know. I don't make the rules. All right, so let's look at games really quick here. I've got one in a cardboard box, but I don't want to bother showing you that. Let's look at Madden 97. Zoom out a little bit. So one problem that Sega had was they came out with these really big jewel cases, which I did not like. I don't like the jewel cases that CDs come in. It's made out of this cheap shit plastic that easily cracks and breaks, and tabs would break off, etc. And you know, they repeat it here in a larger, you know, format. It's just a really big game box, which, you know, the gaming industry eventually kind of settles on some standards at some point. You know, trying to make these things look bigger and advertise more on store shelves, etc. Yeah, there's another Blockbuster sale. Just not my favorite case. These things break easy. You know, you drop them on the ground, they'll shatter. Pretty terrible. John Madden wants a bucket of chicken. So I got Madden 97. I've got a cardboard game box here that had Virtua Fighter 2, Virtua Cop, Daytona USA. This came with the Sega Saturn. It was free with the purchase. You know, where it says valid November 27th, 1996 to December 31st, 96, or while supplies last. And this may be around the time when I purchased the Saturn for myself. I had purchased, you know, a CD32, an Atari Jaguar, and those had come out before the Saturn. But I was a little gun shy on buying another console at that point. But like I said, I eventually got the Saturn. We've got D, which Anderson and I have referenced many times on the radio show that we do, Video Game News Radio. It's kind of like a horror, full motion video horror game. That's a full motion video back then. That one's that one's better than most, but it's still a full motion video game. NHL Power Play 96 hockey. I don't know if this is the hockey game. I think this one's top down. I think this one's good. But there were a number of hockey games where they hadn't quite figured out how to do 3D yet. And so you were like playing hockey on the side, like side screen. It was really bad. I don't think it's that one. We have the Aerosmith game. Revolution X. Music is the Weapon. I believe this is a shooting game. Yeah, and there are 2 players. 1994 Midway Manufacturing. So it's Midway Games. You know, when I look at this, and I don't see anything that says you need to use a light gun with this. Although it is a light gun game. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. A lot of times you could move the aiming reticle around with your digital D-pad. That would suck, but you could do that. Hopefully this works with a gun. We got Big Hurt Baseball. I don't think I ever played that. Frank Thomas. And we've got the Saturn version of Road Rash, which was always a favorite, although we played it a lot on the 3DO. But the PlayStation version, Saturn version, 3DO version are all pretty much identical. But Anderson and I played this game to death when he would come over in the evenings, and we would just eat garbage and play some Road Rash, among other titles that we had. I've got Virtua Fighter 2 on in a jewel case for some reason. I had a nice fan of... I complained once that Eric Wolpaw took my boxed copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga, which is a very expensive game to get the North American version of. I doubt he still has it. Maybe I'll bring that up to him when I see him next. But nice guy. I think it was Noble. He sent me the game on disc again. Just in these slips. These are probably, I mean, I don't know, but these are probably aftermarket copies that somebody made, since they lack an actual jewel case. Or they could be loose, but I sort of doubt it. Anyway, though, but it was really nice of them to send those over to me, and thank you. Panzer Dragoon Saga was a really good RPG that came out late and it was limited in number for the North American release because the Saturn was just about done at that point, and they just were like, well, we'll make like, I think they made like 10,000 of them or something, for the Western market. I don't even know if it was that many, and release them, and now it's fairly rare. We have a Virtua Fighter 2 in a cardboard slip. This is because I own more than one Saturn, and we have a beat up manual here, etc. Okay, so there is that. Let me put these away. Now, what I do have is another Sega Saturn that has been modernized. So a fella sold me one online that contains I believe an HDMI out. It's been fixed to play copied games. It's had its non-volatile memory also swapped out, so it no longer needs that watch battery. Other than the watch battery, I think handles the time, but it doesn't back up the non-volatile memory, which is what this would use to store game saves, etc. He put in a new memory that'll last like basically forever in order to keep playing, to keep your things without worrying about that battery dying after a amount of time. So I have that one. That one we can also check out because I've never actually turned it on. But try to put some stuff away here. But we'll get to that shortly. What we obviously need at this exact moment is the power cord and the AV out, which I do have, but I don't have handy. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop the camera. I'm going to go gather up the rest of the parts that we need to make this work, and then I'll be back, and we'll plug it in. We'll see if it works. If I get a display out of it, we'll switch over to the video side, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Hang tight. Okay, so I was able to get, I forgot to mention that I had an HDMI cable output for the Sega Saturn that I bought aftermarket, which is really nice to have, and it's not difficult to find one of those. If you have an old Saturn, you can get one, and it just plugs into a USB for power, and you can then drive your Saturn straight out into an HD TV set, and it has a switch on it, so you can go from widescreen to 4:3, which is currently we're looking at it in widescreen. I'm probably just going to keep it in widescreen unless something looks really, really weird. So we have the menu here. Let's see, select English. I don't have anything in the system, so 1194. Oh, I see the game volume is really loud on your end, so I'm going to turn that down. Yeah, so it had a little video thing here where you could play music in those cubes, dance, etc. We don't really need to look at that. Let's go ahead and look at Virtua Fighter 2, which was a good display of the system's capabilities, at that time, right? PlayStation had like Battle Arena to Shinden and all of that kind of thing, and Saturn later had Virtua Fighter 2, and it did a good example of showing us what it was capable of. Let's see if this loads. Looks like it's going to, which is good. Seems like the rubber bands and everything in the CD drive are still functioning fine. That's good. It's always good. I've been really lucky with the CD systems we've looked at so far, that most of them have been functional without much difficulty. I do have some others that I have doubts about, and we're going to get to them. CD CD, Sega CD era, we'll find out. Yeah, this is a kind of a fun little intro to the game because it shows you the Virtua Fighter 1 characters and then how they were improved for Virtua Fighter 2. Virtua Fighter 2 also had the unique ability to, it had like a block feature, so like it was like you could use it to counter somebody's moves if you knew what you were doing. And so it was a little bit more strategic than just like the other fighting games where you were just constantly trying to switch off and use the most, supers that you could before the other guy could. Virtua Fighter 2 had a certain level of watch mode. There used to be a way to, it was like a demo for this, where it would show you some rather cool movement or something. I'm not quite sure what you did to get into that mode anymore. I mean, so it's your standard fighter, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to sell it to you or anything, but I'm just trying to show that, this is 3D. It's, on the Saturn. It was capable of playing a decent 3D fighting game. That's kind of what we all want. That's what we all want in life. Let's see if I can. How do you get out of this? I think there used to be a way like you could go back to the home screen if you held down a bunch of buttons and did something. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Maybe not. There is a reset button, of course, which we will use now, but then you have to reload everything. Now, what I have is I have a stack of let's call them pirated titles someone gave me. I didn't sit around and create all these. Sure you didn't, Kevin. No, I did. I don't even know if you probably can use a regular CD burner these days, but I know for a while you had to have like a certain type of CDR, a certain burner, and all that kind of stuff, and then you would have to do something special to make it work. Let me see here what I've got that might be of interest. Panzer Dragoons Y. Maybe we'll look at that one. Kyo Flying Squadron. Shinobi Legions. Shining Wisdom. They did have some pretty good RPGs for this too. Shining Force 3, regular Panzer Dragoon, Guardian Heroes. Yeah, there was a multiplayer adapter for this, and I think you could make it so you could play 8 players at once. Don't know all the specifics on that, but Guardian Heroes is one of those games where you could get a bunch of people together and all play at the same time, if that was your thing. Shining the Holy Ark. Grandia, Resident Evil, of course, Legend of Oasis, Police Knots. Yeah, this is the demo of the moves and stuff. Darius Gaiden, whatever. Tengoku, Game Paradise. Panzer Dragoon Saga, of course, as well. Alien Trilogy. Valhalla. Magic Knight Ray Earth. Magical Hopper. Astal. Burning Rangers. Doom on the Saturn. Anybody want to see Doom from 1995 on how the Saturn handled it? No. Duke Nukem 3D. Symphony of the Night in English. Maybe we'll look at that. Linkle Liver Story. No idea what that is. Galactic Attack. And Exhumed Power Slave from Europe. So, of course, there are many, many, many more Saturn games out there, and there is an absolute plethora of fighters for it. Okay, let's look at something else. Let's first see if this Saturn that we've been using will work with a pirated title. I don't think it will, but let's go ahead and try one just to see. You know, recently I had gone through all my consoles and their crates in order to see what I still have left to do. And I found just about everything I was looking for. I thought I had more Microvision cartridges than I did. And my Sega CDs, I had a standalone Sega CD, is missing. I think I may have thrown that away. I think at one time it just didn't work. And I didn't, at that point in my life, I was like, well, I'm not going to fix this thing, because I didn't know how. But of course, today, looking back on it, it was probably just as simple as changing out some belts in order to make it work. But it didn't work, and I believe I tossed it. Everything else, surprisingly, I still have. And I've sat and thought about it to great lengths. And yeah, like I have everything that I ever bought, etc. So this looks like it is not going to work, which is to be expected. Using the right controller, though, make sure. Yeah, that just sets the CDG channel. It'll play the music on the disc, but it won't play the actual game, which is expected, which is fine. But it's nice to see that this particular Sega Saturn, my original Sega Saturn, still functional after all this time. Let's shut the power off. Let's insert this goofy freaking cartridge that probably just going to burn the system out when I put it in. And then let's see if it'll boot the pirated game. Let's see if this cartridge does anything. It's asking me to set the language because, like I said, that battery is probably long dead. Which I can replace it, you know, not a big deal. It's easily accessible. Somewhere I have like some additional Sega Saturn games. I know I have like a Japanese version of Shinobi, and that's somewhere. Yeah, checking disk format. It's certainly chewing on it more with this cartridge inserted, but I don't think it's going to go. No, just thinks it's a music CD. Which is fine. This cartridge may have been designed for again to play Japanese games. I just don't remember. Okay, so what we're going to do now is disconnect all of the cords and remove the game. We'll put that one back in a little bit after I'm done recording. Let's take out the modded one. And you can find, if you've got the money, you can find people on eBay who have an entire job of basically taking classic systems and making them better and then reselling them. This is an example of that. It's a very clean, much cleaner than my own Sega Saturn here. Also black. Looks visually identical on the outside. I don't see anything special. Even the expansion port looks exactly the same with the watch battery there and everything. And so I was wrong, though. It does not support. It was not an HDMI mod, but that is okay because I have an HDMI cable. Okay, it does have a different door, though. This seems to be a revised case. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper. It's missing the red light on the right-hand side, but otherwise it seems to be pretty good. Let's go ahead and look at Panzer Dragoons Y, assuming it'll launch. Let's power it up. Yep. Piracy. It's a thing. People do it. Panzer Dragoon is a uniquely Sega experience. It's basically an on-rail shooter. If you've played it and you like on-rail shooters, not everybody does, because everybody wanted their 3D to be not on rails, basically, not the Space Harrier type of thing, but rather they wanted it to be where they can control and move everything around. But some people, it's a game. At the end of the day, it's a game, and you're playing it, and it's either fun for you or it's not. It has less to do with the technical thing and more to do if it's fun. So, the first one, you're flying the dragon around, you're fighting things. It's very Space Harrier-ish. And then here in the second one, they kind of have a whole, they start to build a little bit of a story behind it, where there's these sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, almost like blimps, like warship blimps in the air, zeppelins. And then, you're like this kid flying this dragon to try and stop this thing. But there's no dialogue or anything that I recall. It's all just kind of, no one's talking to anybody or anything. It's just kind of a story that, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, people live in terror of the living weapon. None of this matters. They're just trying to give it a little something. And I can't remember if this is if there was a third. There was later. There's Panzer Dragoon Orta that came out on Xbox. And of course, then you have the RPG that kind of built on the lore a lot more. It was just kind of Panzer Dragoon is just kind of an interesting little tale of a game. I guess there is some dialogue. It's not much though. I'm just saying. You start playing the game. You don't keep going to all these cutscenes. It's never quite sure what the heck is going on. All right, let's move on. Let's get to the game. We don't care about all this. And we are going to look at PlayStation this way too. So if you kind of keep a mental note of what this looks like, and then when we look at the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, because hindsight's 2020 kind of thing. Yeah, that's right. When you first start off in this one, you're not able to fly yet, so you're kind of running through the boards. So yeah, they do things like that. You know, the big boulder chasing you. It's I don't know how to explain it really. Like they throw a lot in, and it's not the only on rails type of game in this genre. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of people just didn't like on rails shooters. Some people did, but you know, a lot of people didn't, so they didn't sell as many as they wanted. But it's unfortunate because they do a lot of cool things with it. The last one I played was actually on the Wii. It was Dead Space Extraction, and I thought that was going to be pretty lousy, just because Dead Space is a third-person action game, and I thought like they were just going to dumb it down for the Wii. But it's actually pretty fun. It's actually pretty good. Like it's kind of like a gun. It's kind of like a light gun game, but you know, you're picking things up along the way by using the gun, and you're sort of interacting with certain things and making choices of where things are going to go, etc. And it has a lot of good elements in it. It was actually rated pretty well among people that actually reviewed it, that weren't being biased because of the, you know, fight this thing. Well, this holds up pretty good. It doesn't look great. It holds up pretty good. See what I'm saying, though? It's just kind of weird. Like, now you're flying. There's that weird thing in the sky. There's another dragon dude. I think he killed me or something. I don't remember what happened there. Did I die? Oh, no. Yeah. All right. We're not going to keep playing this all the way through or anything. I just want to see if I get to the dragon part that flies. And we'll try something else real quick. I'm not going to run through this whole game. But, you know, they got texture maps. And if you go back to, like, when we looked at the Atari Jaguar, you know, the Jaguar, it didn't really do texture mapping. You know, and the Saturn here, you know, is doing a good job of, you know, texture maps, creating a 3D world and everything. Yes, you know, this particular game is on rails, but it's still, you know, it's still rendering a lot of this. And, you know, it looks pretty good. Anyway, we won't keep playing this one. Let's move on to something else. I can play Panzer Dragoon Saga all day. I'm no good at it, though. I don't know what this is. This is called Deep Fear. Let's all see what it is together. It'll be all of our first times with whatever Deep Fear. If you know what Deep Fear is, don't tell. Don't tell the group. Just keep it quiet. 1995. That was like, I was out of high school for about 4 years at that point. I had already finished my career as a cook, deciding I didn't want to cook, and had gotten a job. Chet Falasek gave me a job, Eric Wolpaw, and some other friends of mine, and I was loading magnetic tape for computers into a D-Base system, and taught myself effectively how to be a programmer over all those years. Many years ago, but back then, 94, 95, yeah, I was still, you know, kind of a nobody, but I had some good friends that I worked with. I worked second shift in a warehouse in East Cleveland. It's a bad neighborhood, but it was a good time for my age. I'd only been there for a couple of years, I think, at that point, because I worked at a strip joint for a little while. Not me stripping or anything, but I worked as a barback and a cook. And before that, I worked at a fine dining restaurant. What is this game? What am I looking at? It's just like, it's going to be like Myst or something. I hate those freaking slideshow games. I'm going to hit start. Let's see what we got. Oh! Who's this guy? Oh, that's me. What is this, like a Resident Evil kind of thing? Ooh, he walks slow. I'm going for the health thing. You've obtained a first aid kit. How many can I take? Or am I taking it back? I don't know how many. I have no idea what's going on. It does have the controls like a Resident Evil. Do I need one of these uniforms? Is that a thing? I want to be a fireman. Guess not. Let's go over here. CCD Area 2F Passageway. Whatever this is, it's in English. I'm not familiar with whatever this is. My name is Bruce. I work out a lot. I like to lift when I have days off. Drink a protein shake. Eat brown rice and chicken breast. It's Dubois' room. The door is locked. Dubois. I don't walk real fast, though. I had an accident one year when I can run, though. I can run. The deck. It says no admittance without permission. Bullshit. I'm running this way. I'm running. Is this where I came from? Going into the conference room. Going into the conference room, everybody. Today, there's no one here. I feel like very square and weird. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I can run. I don't know what this is. It's not that great. I'll revisit it at some other time. Deep fear. I didn't feel any deep fear. Maybe I'm underwater or something. Let's look at Alien Trilogy. We'll just see what that looks like. Then we'll look at the last one. We'll look at is the Symphony of the Night, and then we'll call it a night on the Sega Saturn. But hey, both the Sega Saturns work. Controllers are working good. No complaints. Kind of happy. This is all. Other than I need to clean up that one controller because of the rust. Overall, it's a keeper. Box Interactive. My God, it's Acclaim. Acclaim Entertainment. So many game companies no longer around. This era had so many game companies. I mean, there were a lot in the 8-bit, obviously, and the 16-bit generations, of course, but their brandings weren't like in your face like they were once you got into the CD era.
We don't want anyone to learn that the company has deliberately infected colonists in order to smuggle alien specimens past ICC.
Alien Trilogy. Is this one of the good Alien games or one of the terrible Alien games? There is quite a number of Alien games. The arcade, what is that, Alien vs. Predator? That's kind of fun. Oh, it's like a FPS. Interesting.
So, if you recall, we did look at Aliens vs. Predator on the Jaguar, and it did not have curved surfaces, and it certainly didn't have any stairs, but it did have a crisper display. It had crisper graphics. Oh, there's the alien thing. Face hugger. Well, this, gotta say, you know, having looked at the other systems of the time, like the CD32, this is doing really well and is quite a bit more powerful than that system was. And I would argue to say it's quite a bit more powerful than what the Jaguar was showing us. Although, to be fair, there is a version of Doom for the Jaguar. Look at that same door. Okay. But you know, one of the things with these games is, like, when you get close, they get more pixelated because, you know, the graphics are right in your face. You still kind of have that here. It's not too bad. I just want to see an alien, like a regular alien. Face huggers everywhere. It's not that exciting. Guess it's not that door. Is that even a door? I stepped on something else. Where the fuck is the door? That's not the door. Is this the door? That's not the door. Where the hell's the door? There's a door. Can I hop? Strafe. Am I missing something? Is there a door? Do we see a door here? Maybe it's the door across the hall? Yeah. Oh, you puzzly games. Kind of looking for a more curved surface. I'm not seeing it, so I might take back part of what I said about the Jaguar here. This isn't particularly with shotgun. Shotgun. I don't see any more doors here. Now, could the Jaguar do this? I don't know. Maybe. Can I shoot these now since I have this? Hey. Hey. I mean, this is alright. For the time period, it's not bad. Mostly when I was playing Sega Saturn, I was playing RPGs. It role-playing games were more my speed. So I was doing a lot more of that. And I had a whole bunch of them, and I kept them for a very long time. And then there was a part, same with Jaguar games, and there was a part of my life where I needed some money to survive. And I ended up selling a lot of stuff on eBay. And a lot of my Saturn games, I had a few Saturn games that sold at the time for over $200 a piece. Because I just had some games that, were RPGs on a system that nobody was buying, and everybody was ignoring because they were playing PlayStation at the time. Well, it really wasn't a collector's market back then. Nobody was thinking of things like that. So, I was buying some games that, very few people bought. And I was also like into strategy games at the time. And so, yeah, when I went to sell them, they were worth a lot of money. Same with my Virtual Boy games, my Jaguar games. I made enough money, so I'm still alive. So this is 97, 98. So it kind of shows you, 4 years on, we were still making Saturn games here. Oh, of course we're going to be a la carte. I don't think there's no need to even argue about that. Now, this is one of those things. I don't know that much about Castlevania. This might have been on the PlayStation as well. Probably was. I can't imagine Konami only made a copy for the Saturn. But they did make, a 3D one for the N64, I think. I don't think they ported that in or anything. Trying to skip past this BS. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was on other platforms. I remember the name now. Still, it's cool. It's on Saturn. Don't you hate that? When you use your power up. Dun, 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 dun. I really think 2D stuff was the Saturn strength. It's not to say that PlayStation didn't have a good version of this. They might have even had a better version of this, but there were just a lot of more 2D games that took advantage of the memory card. And, just... Oh, I love that it's in Japanese. Japanese vampires that look English. Let's move on. Nobody's got time for this. Ouch. Probably gonna die, right? Like, this is the main villain. Ass is on fire. Ouch. It's not a very cunning plan there, Alucard. Yeah, that was a little bit dumb. Guess he heard me. I'm supposed to hit this guy. I'm gonna die real soon, folks. This game just went to like 11. Thanks, babe, for that powering up you gave me. Anyway, so that's Sega Saturn. Not as bad as some people think. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's better than PlayStation. It ain't, by any measure. It did a couple of things that were cool that PlayStation didn't do, but PlayStation, of course, was the dominant system, and it changed everything. But for the second system, not a bad deal with Sega Saturn. If you had one, you had a pretty nice selection of RPGs, some good action games. You just didn't have the huge library and the Metal Gears and all that sort of stuff that PlayStation had. But yeah, not bad. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll wrap this one up and move on to the other 100 consoles or so that we still have to get through. Thanks for watching.